Hello everyone, you're welcome to Success Path Tutors. I am Akerele Oladimiji Philip. I'll be taking you on biology video lecture series. On today's edition of the video, we'll be talking about nervous coordination, and I will advise you to have read this topic before attempting this video. It will make more sense when you've read the topic. However, I will also take our time to still explain things to you so that we can be on the same page. And you can pause the video. In fact, I would advise you to pause the video once in a while to see if you can answer the question before I provide the answers. Alright, let's get started. Alright. This is use the diagram below in answer to the questions that follows, and this is the diagram of a neuron, which is the basic structural and functional unit of the nervous system. So let's label those parts. One points to this edge here, and that's the dendron of the neuron. Two points to the nucleus, while 3 points to, see, the space around here. That's not specific enough, so this entire place is called cell body or soma, S-O-M-A, while 4 points to the axon. From this junction or this point to this entire length is called the axon. Alright, so this whitish thing that covers the axon, which is not labeled, is called it's called myelin sheath. While 5 is the axon terminal, while 6 is the we call it terminal bulb or axonal knob, KNOB. That is the point with which it will attach to an effector organ. So now that we've labeled this part, let's see what the questions are attached to this diagram. What are the parts that receives impulse? That receives and conveys impulse. So that's the questions. There's a part that receives impulse, and that's the dendrite. That's not labeled. So once dendrite receives it, it takes it to the dendron. So our dendron receives the impulse while the axon transmits it. So you say receives and convey. So the receiver here will be 1, the conveyor will be 4. So the answer to number 1 will be D. Alright. Impulse flow from what to what? That means we need to look at where is the beginning. So it's going to be from 1 to 6, because impulse without exception flows in this direction like that. Alright, so it's going to be from 1 to 6. From the beginning here, it goes, comes in through dendrite, dendron, soma, axon terminal, initial segment of axon. It moves the entire length, then axon terminal, then the axon knob. Alright, so that should be 1 to 6. Moving on, the neuron represented in the diagram above is A. Now this neurons are classified into two based on two conditions, based on structures, based on functions. The option given below are actually for functions, but let me explain some things. This neuron is having plenty poles, so we call it multipolar neuron structurally. And any neuron that is multipolar in nature structurally always function as motor neuron, otherwise called efferent neuron. Alright, so from what we have down here, we have afferent neuron, which is otherwise called sensory neuron, efferent neuron, which is otherwise called motor neuron. So from what I said, our answer will be efferent neuron, because that is what the name is functionally. All right, use the diagram for the questions that follow. This is a reflex arc, I think is even written here. Now, which of the following conveys impulse from the receptors towards the central nervous system? Now, let me label what is here to start with. This is the sensory or efferent neuron. This one I mentioned here, this is it here. 2 is your relay neuron. 3 is the gray matter. 4 is the motor or efferent neuron. I will take that again. 1 is the sensory or afferent neuron. 2 is the relay neuron, otherwise called intermediate neuron. 3 is gray matter. 4 is motor or efferent neuron. This part here is a white matter. So we say the spinal cord has some white matter on the outside while the gray matter is inside. So let's answer this question now. Which of the following conveys impulse from the receptors towards the central nervous system? That will be the sensory or afferent neuron. Is the one that conveys impulse from the receptors. And what are receptors? Receptors are structures that receives different type of stimuli, then sends it to the nervous system through the sensory or afferent neuron. All right. Our receptors have ability to convert any kind of stimuli into electrical impulse. So the answer to that would be 1, because it's one that conveys impulse from the receptors. All right, let's move on. Which of the following parts has cell bodies of neurons? Yes, this part called gray matter is where the cell bodies of neurons are found, while the axons are found in the white matter. All right, so the answer to that will be 3, because 3 is our gray matter. Motor neuron is represented by what? By 4. I mentioned that not quite long. That's option A. The cerebral hemispheres are connected by corpus callosum. Corpus callosum is the structure that connects the two cerebral hemispheres together. The cerebellar hemisphere, that's the cerebellum, are connected by what? That's the pons varoli. So pons varoli is a structure. However, pons has some other functions, alright, but it also connects the cerebellar hemisphere together. Which of the following is wrong about the cerebrospinal fluid? Let me add at this point that a student once asked me what or where is cerebrospinal fluid formed. It is formed in the ventricles of the brain, all right, within the ventricles of the brain. Okay, so which of the following is wrong about that? Let me make this wrong big enough so that you can see it together. Okay, which of the following is wrong about the about the cerebrospinal fluid? It serves as shock absorber to the central nervous system. That is correct. It provides nutrients to the central nervous system. That is correct. Infection of cerebrospinal fluid leads to meningitis. Not really. Infection of the meninges is what leads to meningitis. So this is the wrong one out. Abnormal increase in production of cerebrospinal fluid leads to hydrocephaly. That is correct. All right. A situation whereby an animal associates to or related stimuli is called condition reflex. What does that mean? A condition whereby maybe sound is associated with something else. Humans salivate at the smell or even talking about food. Alright, so sound is a stimulus, salivation is another stimulus on its own. So food is another stimulus on its own. So associating these unrelated things together is called condition reflex. All of the following protect the central nervous system except for glial cell. Ganglia. I mean to say ganglia. Ganglia is just the cell body of neuron outside the central nervous system. All the following are true of the spinal cord except the impulse flows in through the anterior gray horn. That is wrong. Impulse flows in through the posterior gray horn. In a minute I'm going to show you a diagram to explain that. Every other option here are all correct except for A. So let me show you where impulse enters the spinal cord and where it leaves the spinal cord. Okay, this part is called anterior gray horn. This part is called posterior gray horn. Impulse carried by sensory or afferent neuron enters to the posterior gray horn, while impulse leaves through the anterior gray horn using the motor or efferent neuron. Alright? Okay? The central nervous system is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. That's option C. The brain is majorly divided into forebrain, midbrain, and hindbrain. That's back. Walking, muscle strength, and general coordination are regulated by the cerebellum. Which of the following is wrong about the central nervous system? The white matter forms the outer layer of the spinal cord. That's correct. The spinal cord forms a bridge between the brain and the peripheral nervous system. That's correct. All the parts of the brain are made up of gray matter as their outer membrane. That's wrong. Yes, the outer membrane of the brain is made up of gray matter, but the medulla oblongata is made up of white matter, just like the spinal cord. So this statement is wrong. It's not the entire brain that has gray matter as its outside part. Option D is also correct. So the wrong one here is C. Involuntary actions such as breathing as well as heartbeat is controlled by the medulla oblongata. Arrange the movement of electrical impulse in the right order as found in neuron. Like I told you earlier on, the first part of the neuron that receives impulse is dendrite, which is 3. Then the next one is dendron, which is 5. Then the next to that is going to be cell body. Then the next to that is going to be axon 4, and the next to that is going to be axon is 1, then the last will be axon terminal, so that's going to be 3 5 2 1 4. 3 5 2 1 4. That's option B. That's the right movement of impulse along a neuron. In a reflex arc, which of the following structures is not part? Glial cell is not part of that. Every other structure mentioned here are part of the things needed for a reflex arc to take place. And let me say this here: reflex action or reflex arc involve 5 structures, and I will list them in their hierarchy. Number 1 is receptor. Number 2 is sensory or afferent neuron. Number 3 is relay or intermediate neuron. Number 4 is motor or efferent neuron. Number 5 is effector organ, and that can be your muscles, your gland, it varies. Which of the following is incorrect about autonomic nervous system? It is divided into para and sympathetic nervous system. That's correct. Sympathetic nervous system tends to decrease physiological action, while parasympathetic tends to increase physiological action. That is wrong. Physiological actions are increased by sympathetic because it comes into place during emergency. So the answer to that will be option B. Every other option there are correct except option B. Which of the following statement is correct about a resting neuron or resting membrane potential? The neuron is active. No, that is not true. The internal environment of the neuron is positively charged. That is true. Sorry, that is not true also. The external environment of the neuron is positively charged. That is true. So when the neuron is resting, the internal membrane, the ICF or the ICE, what does ICF means? Intracellular fluid of the neuron is negatively charged, while the outside is positively charged. So that is what happens if a neuron is not carrying any impulse. So the answer to that is C, because we are looking for the correct statement about the neuron. So every other one here are erroneous statements, or they are wrong options. Which of the following is not an example of a reflex? Sneezing, salivating for a delicious food, dropping a hot iron, a decision of eating rice instead of eating beans. That is voluntary action. So the answer to that is D. Every other one here are all reflex. Even salivating for a delicious food is a reflex, but just a conditioned reflex. Which of the following pairs of ions are considered an essential ion in the propagation of action potential in a neuron? That will be potassium and sodium. Option C. Neurons communicate by the help of neurotransmitter. Please be careful. One might want to think it is synapse. Synapse is just the gap through which neurons communicate, but the chemical by which they actually communicate is called neurotransmitter. This dopamine here, option D, and acetylcholine are examples of this. You get what I'm saying? And it's not every neuron that secretes these two, so it would be wrong to choose this. But the general name for that chemical is called neurotransmitter. That's why the option is, the answer to that question is B. Which of the following function? Which of the following? So what is the function? Oh, that is a wrong grammar there. Let me type that to make that correct. What is the function of the Schwann cell? What are Schwann cells? Schwann cells are the cells that produce myelin sheaths in a neuron. And what's the function of myelin sheath? To make impulse travel faster along a neuron. At the beginning of this lecture, I showed you a diagram. That diagram of a neuron, I said there's something called myelin sheath which was not labeled. So what does it do? It causes impulse to move faster, and that faster movement is called saltatory conduction. Alright, so that is the answer to that question. That will be all for now on this nervous coordination. Please do send your question to me through that number on WhatsApp, or you can put a call across and solve more past questions. Or if you have any question or one of these things I said here isn't clear enough, please feel free to get across to me. You can get more of our videos on Success Path Tutors on YouTube. Thank you very much for your time. Always remember, the best is within you. God bless you.